When Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett walked into the room during Trump's speech, he immediately ordered security to throw her out. But before they could reach her, she managed to speak for just 20 seconds, leaving everyone in the room in shock. It was supposed to be another summit at the K. Bailey Hutcherson Convention Center in Dallas, where Trump was set to speak, and things rarely went according to plan. When he took the mic, the ballroom filled up quickly. With every seat occupied, everyone anticipated that Trump would dominate the event. Meanwhile, security had quietly doubled behind the scenes. The lights dimmed, and Trump was introduced. He made his entrance slowly, wearing that familiar grin. The applause was thunderous, though not everyone was clapping. Then out of the press area, a figure appeared, dressed in a dark blazer, and exuding calm confidence. It took the crowd a moment to realize who she was: Jasmine Crockett, the freshman congresswoman from Texas's 30th district, known for her incisive questioning. No one expected to see her here, especially not walking in alone. While Donald Trump was still speaking, Trump spotted her instantly. His speech faltered. "What's going on here?" he asked into the mic, peering across the stage. "Did we invite her?" The crowd rumbled. Phones went up. Security turned sharply in her direction. Crockett didn't flinch. She walked a few more steps in and stopped midway down the side aisle. One man shouted, "You don't belong here!" Trump waved toward the side stage crew. "Someone take care of that," he said. Security personnel started walking her way. Crockett raised her hand, palm up, signaling she wanted to speak. "I just want 1 minute," she said, loud enough to reach the mic. Less silence of the hall. "1 minute, and I'll leave." The air went still. No one moved. Trump hesitated. Something about the calm in her voice made people pause, instead of panic. The two men in black suits kept walking. The room still hadn't decided how to react. Jasmine Crockett stood her ground, steady. "I was invited," she said, directing her voice to the audience by a representative, Noah Hargrove, who couldn't make it today. She turned back toward Trump. "You say you want open dialogue? Let me give you just 1 minute of mine." The two security guards slowed, unsure of whether to proceed. Trump looked down at the crowd, then back at Crockett. "This isn't your platform," he said into the mic. "You weren't cleared. You want 1 minute, get a podcast." Laughter rolled through parts of the room, but Crockett wasn't flustered. "I'm not here to disrupt. I'm here because I believe this country belongs to all of us, not just the people we agree with." That landed harder than expected. Trump stepped away from the podium, gesturing impatiently. "I'm not doing this," he muttered. "Off mic, just get her out." One of the guards took another step forward. Then an older woman in the front row stood up. "Let her speak," she said. A man 3 rows back echoed, "Yeah, let her talk." The wave wasn't huge, but it was enough to stall everything. Trump squinted toward the crowd. "Really, we're going to let someone crash a stage and call it free speech." But there was no real pushback now. Too many phones were out. This was no longer a controlled stage. It had become a public moment. Finally, with visible reluctance, Trump waved his hand toward the mic. "All right, fine," he said. "You've got 60 seconds. Go ahead. Say something smart." He stepped to the side. Security stopped. Crockett didn't rush the stage. She walked slowly toward the front. Stopping a few feet from the steps, she didn't try to take the podium. Instead, she turned toward the audience and clasped her hands together. "I'm not going to talk policy," she began. "And not today. Because this isn't about policy anymore. It's about people, how we talk to each other, how we stop listening once we hear the other side's name." She took a breath, scanning the room. "I grew up 15 minutes from here in South Dallas. I used to ride the DART to school and pass this convention center every day. Never imagined I'd be standing inside it asking for the right to speak." Some people leaned forward. Now I'm not here to convince you of anything. I don't expect applause and I don't need agreement. I just want people to remember we're not enemies, we're Americans. If we can't tolerate a voice that challenges us, we've already lost more than an election. There was silence. Not awkward. Silence, just still. Even Trump didn't cut in. Crockett looked around once more, gave a small nod, and took a single step back. That's all I wanted to say, but the room wasn't quite ready to move on. The silence was thick. Not tense, but weighty. Trump stayed off to the side of the podium, arms folded, watching her. Jasmine remained in place, just under the lip of the stage. Then slowly a clap started from the back right corner, hesitant, one or two hands at first, then a few more, not a standing ovation, but enough to break the silence. Trump stepped forward again, cutting into the moment. "All right," he said. "She had her say. That's America, folks. Even when you don't want to hear it." His tone was half sharp, half dismissive. But even he knew something about the energy in the room had shifted. Then someone else stood up. Middle row, red golf shirt, Congresswoman. He said loud and clear, "I don't agree with you on much, but you said that better than most people ever have. Respect." She didn't smile. She just nodded. Once Trump blinked, clearly caught off guard. He raised a brow and turned slightly toward the man. "Well, aren't you full of surprises today?" Trump said with a quick laugh that didn't quite land. Then, just like that, it started slipping back into normal reporters, rushed to upload their clips, and security finally relaxed. Jasmine Crockett stepped back to the wall, giving space. She wasn't escorted out. She found an empty chair near the exit and sat calm and silent again, just present. But the attention hadn't left her yet. On stage, Trump shifted uncomfortably. For the first time that day, the spotlight wasn't on him. He adjusted the mic. "Well, I think we've all had our civics lesson for the day," he said. "Now can we get back to the part where we talk about actually fixing the country?" There were chuckles. Applause picked back up the room, wanted its rhythm back, but it wasn't quite there. Because right before Trump could launch into his talking points again, someone else called out, "Why don't you respond to what she said?" Gasp's phones lifted again. Trump froze. "I don't need to respond," he finally said. Voice clipped. "She's got her opinion. I've got mine. And I was invited." Then Jasmine did something unexpected. Again, she stood up, walked slowly back toward the side aisle, and instead of heading for the door, she turned around to face the crowd again. "I didn't come here for attention," she said plainly, "but maybe some of you came here needing to hear something different. Not better, not perfect, just different." And with that, she left quietly. What happened inside that ballroom didn't stay there for long. By the time Jasmine Crockett reached the end of the hallway, her phone had already buzzed 9 times back inside the building. The panel tried to regain its footing. Trump leaned hard into his script, but it was like driving on a road with the wrong tires. The energy wasn't quite there. What made it hit so hard wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. No theatrics, no slogans, just steady words, spoken plainly. By the time the summit wrapped, talk of her entrance had already gone viral. People huddled near the escalators, replaying the clips on their phones. 2 hours later, the first video clip hit Twitter. It was grainy, but it captured everything within 1 hour. It had over 20,000 likes. The comments came fast. Didn't expect to agree with Jasmine Crockett today. But wow, respect. This is how you change minds. Not with noise, with clarity, by nightfall. Cable news had picked it up. Not just the networks you'd expect, but all of them. One station ran the headline, "Congresswoman Sparks Unscripted Moment of Unity in Divided Room." Another called it an unexpected display of political courage. But the reactions weren't all praise. Some far-right commentators slammed her as an opportunist. Still, something about that claim didn't hold up, because if it had been staged, it would have felt louder, more polished. It didn't. It felt like a person walking into a space she didn't belong in, asking for just one shot to be heard, and doing it without shouting at her home in Dallas. Later that evening, Jasmine finally sat down with her team. "I didn't expect it to go like that," she said. "You didn't expect applause either," her aide replied. "But you got some. I wasn't looking for applause." Jasmine said, "I just wanted them to see a human being, not a soundbite, not an enemy." Her press manager, Reuben Sloan, shook his head as he scrolled through. "Twitter. People are calling it a turning point." He said, "Even folks who hate politics are reposting it." Jasmine looked up suddenly, tired. "That's the saddest part." She said, "All I did was ask for 60 seconds without screaming. And now it's a national headline." Not long after something else unexpected happened outside in the vendor lot, Crockett ran into a small group of attendees as she made her way to her car. She stopped when she heard someone say her name. "Congresswoman." She turned to see a man jogging toward her. He looked cautious. "I just wanted to say, I didn't come here to listen to anyone from your side," he said. "But I did, and I'm glad I did." Jasmine studied him for a beat. "I run a roofing company in Temple, voted red every election since I was old enough. But what you said, it got to me." He stuck out his hand. She shook it. "You listened," she said. "That's more than most people try to do." But not everyone outside that building was ready to have the same kind of conversation inside the private lounge. Backstage, Trump paced. He didn't like being caught off guard. "Who the hell cleared her?" he snapped, glaring at one of his aides. "She wasn't on the list." The aide stammered, "We think she came in on Representative Hargrove's credentials." "Sir, technically she was invited as a guest." "Technically," Trump scoffed. "You know, who else gets in on a technicality? Hackers, criminals. I want names." He stopped pacing, then turned toward the small monitor that was still playing footage from the event. Jasmine's face was frozen on screen. Trump stared at it for a moment. Then she was too calm. "You see that? Not even a tremble." "That wasn't off the cuff, that was written, planned." The aide didn't answer. "And what about the crowd?" Trump barked. "Some of our people were clapping." "What the hell was that?" "They were just reacting." "Sir, it caught everyone off guard." "Exactly my point." He grabbed a bottle of water nearby. His longtime advisor, Wesley Stokes, finally chimed in. "Look, Wesley said, you didn't lose the crowd, but you didn't control it either that moment. It's everywhere. Now, people aren't talking about policy. They're talking about..." Her Trump frowned. "She's not the future," he said. "She's noise." Wesley shrugged. "Maybe, but noise travels fast." Trump waved him off and sat down heavily. "She played the game differently." Wesley continued. "Didn't yell, didn't accuse, just showed up and acted like she belonged." There was a long pause. Then Trump leaned forward and said something that surprised even his team. "She had the room for a second. I'll give her that." Wesley blinked. "You respect what she did." Trump didn't answer directly. He just stared at the screen. "I respect strategy," he said. "Doesn't mean I won't tear it down." Outside, his campaign staff scrambled to prepare a statement. Ignoring wasn't really an option anymore. The clip had already made the rounds on prime time. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett sat alone in her living room. Her phone kept lighting up with messages she wasn't ready to answer. She glanced at a voicemail transcription from her mother. "You did good. Baby, don't let them twist it. You spoke like a woman raised. Right?" She smiled faintly. A knock at the door pulled her back. It was Reuben. He stepped in and opened his laptop. "We need to talk about the invites." He said, "There's a town hall in Pennsylvania that wants you next week. PBS is requesting a one-on-one. And believe it or not, someone from Fox wants to do a segment." She didn't answer right away. "I didn't do it for this," she said. "I just couldn't sit through another one-sided speech about what real Americans want. Like I wasn't one." Reuben nodded, "And you didn't scream to prove it. That's why it worked." They sat in silence for a minute. "Do you regret it?" he finally asked. Jasmine took a breath. "I regret that it felt rare. I regret that telling the truth quietly is considered radical." Now upstairs, a light buzzed from her guest room. Her niece was staying over on the screen. They were replaying the clip. The anchor's voice trailed through the walls. Unusual calm, a rare political moment that left the crowd and even the former president without a quick response. Somewhere in Washington, a paid manager scribbled down ideas for a campaign ad somewhere in Florida. A donor pulled funding, and in a dozen political circles, one question floated quietly. If 1 minute of clarity can shake a room like that, what would 5 do? But while the strategists circled the moment, Jasmine was already looking past it, toward the part that came next. 2 mornings later, Jasmine Crockett sat in the corner of a small cafe in Oak Cliff. She had hoped to steal a quiet hour. But quiet never lasts long when the country decides you become something symbolic. A barista recognized her first. Then, a young woman in scrubs came in and finally walked up to Jasmine's table. "Are you Gay-Che?" she started. Jasmine looked up. "I am?" The woman smiled. "I watched your clip 3 times yesterday. My dad's a trucker. He's never voted for anyone but Trump. But when he heard what you said, he got real quiet. He just said, 'She's got guts. Reminds me of your grandma.'" Jasmine blinked. The woman placed a folded note on the table. "He doesn't do social media, so he asked me to write something for you." She walked away. The note was simple. "I don't agree with you, but I listened to you. That's more than I can say." For most, later that afternoon, she sat down for an interview with a local station. The journalist Shelby Dunn had been covering Texas politics for over 20 years. "I've been in a lot of rooms like that," Shelby said, "but I've never seen one stop the way that room did for you." Jasmine took a moment before answering. "I wasn't trying to stop anything. I just wanted to show up and say what I never hear at these things, that it's okay to disagree without thinking someone hates the country." Shelby raised and Jasmine looked away. "Briefly, I was aware," she said, "of the risk, but scared not really. I've been in far smaller rooms with far louder men." She smiled softly. "What scared me more was what would have happened if I stayed quiet." The conversation turned serious. "Do you think the response would have been the same? If you'd shouted, 'Jasmine didn't even pause'?" "No. People would have turned away. That room wasn't built for my anger. But when I didn't come in swinging, they had to choose between listening or walking out. And most of them, they stayed." Shelby leaned back. "And what?" "Now," Jasmine sighed, "I don't want to become a moment. I want this to be a start. If people walked away thinking, maybe I should listen before I assume, then that's enough for me." Back at the convention center, the energy hadn't returned to normal. People didn't walk out, talking about tax reform. They talked about her, about that minute of silence. What really stuck with folks wasn't the applause, but what happened. Right after, during a short break, a small group had gathered near the coffee station, people from different parts of the state. No one was yelling. No one was filming. They were just talking. One of the veterans, Jasper Thorne, leaned against a column. "I'm a Trump guy," he said, "always have been. But she wasn't wrong, the way she carried herself. Man, it got to me, even in the main conference room during the next panel. The undercurrent of what had happened stayed alive." One of the speakers, State Senator Colin Greer, couldn't help himself. "I wasn't planning to address this," he said mid-discussion, "but I feel like if we just move on, like that moment didn't happen. We're pretending." He looked out over the room. Congresswoman Crockett showed courage. "Whether you like her or not, and whether you like me or not, I think courage still matters in politics." The applause that followed wasn't thunderous, but it was real honest. In a time when volume often wins over value, Crockett had cut through the noise by refusing to play the game the usual way, and still she wasn't celebrating. She was back in her district, walking through neighborhoods. She met with teachers, held a listening session, and talked with small business owners. Her team begged her to ride the momentum, national press, big platforms, but she chose to stay local. "Let them know I didn't turn into a headline. I'm still a neighbor." It would have been easy to chase the fame, but she knew better. She understood the responsibility now sitting on her shoulders. Once you show people a different way to be heard, they start expecting more from you and from everyone else. What do you think about this situation? We want to hear your thoughts, so please share your opinion in the comments below. If this story moved, you don't forget to subscribe to Celebrity Stories. We're diving into the complexities they don't want discussed, and we're just getting started. God bless you, and God bless America.